Some of my subscribers have expressed surprise at how relatively few subscribers my channel has, and I appreciate that. But there are reasons why I'm not bothered by it. For starters, I have the second oldest website in the manosphere. After the Seattle Times forced me to suspend publication of my 24-page MRA and anti-feminist zine, I posted my first web pages in May 1995, so in a few weeks, Backlash.com will be 21 years old. In 1995, there were very few websites and only a few featured articles and essays, so by 1998, it was very common for the Backlash to get close to 1 million page hits every month. Yes, before Matt Drudge exposed the Monica Lewinsky affair, my site was bigger than his. And over the years, the cumulative total traffic to my website has easily exceeded 50 million hits. By today's standards, that's not much compared to the commercial websites, but it's never been my purpose to compete with the commercial sites. For the privilege of exposing and opposing anti-male bigotry, I've been paying $70 a month since about 1997 when I switched to my current domain host, zipcon.net in Seattle. Back then, $70 was a bargain compared to what I paid my previous two domain hosts. When Amazon and then Google came out with their affiliate programs, I participated, and during that time I've received perhaps $500 total from ad and referral revenue. Why so little? Because so far less than 300 of the pages on my site have ads on them, and I have several hundred more to go. As I tapered off activity on my site for a few years, starting around 2005, traffic dwindled, but it has started to pick up again, and today I run about 800,000 hits per year. That may be nothing compared to guys like Milo Yiannopoulos, Paul Joseph Watson, Stefan Molyneux, Bernd Chapin, Turd, Flinging Monkey, Sandman, CS MGTOW, Black Pigeon Speaks, and Stardusk. But unlike vloggers like Stardusk, I'm not dependent on YouTube ad revenue, and my cumulative readership/viewership is much bigger. All of which is to say that I'm not in this to compete with anybody else. The reason I decided to start my channel was because I saw MGTOW, MRA, and anti-feminist vloggers reinventing the wheel and in many cases simply glossing over or ignoring historical facts. This left them vulnerable to attacks. Recently, for example, Howard Dare, who has a new channel that I enjoy, made some comments about a feminist author whose book is clearly misogynistic. One thing she said that was correct, however, is that we are all fundamentally female. It's true. The way she said it was clearly intended to denigrate men, but the truth is that male mammals are female hybrids intended to fulfill a specialized function. In other words, you could make the argument that males are an evolutionary step beyond females. Do I make that argument? No. Just saying. Moreover, responding to feminists in a public forum, say a comment section of a newspaper, to point out that, according to biologists, males are really female hybrids, sends them sputtering and makes them look like idiots. It subverts and disintegrates their separatist narrative. I shared this with Howard, and he took it in the spirit in which it was offered, not as a smackdown, but as information to help him improve his message. There's a man whose life and channel have a future. He has a high willingness to learn and a high willingness to accept change. Well, I could be mistaken. I think Howard is in his 30s or 40s. These are lessons I did not learn until my late 50s, so Howard is well ahead of me. Good on him. Others who are well ahead of me include Turd, Flinging Monkey, and CS MGTOW. In another recent example, they and a vlogger I'm not familiar with have started a very interesting conversation about the economic and social systems that are best for men. All the videos mentioned are linked below, by the way. While my biases side with TFM, CS made some very valid and interesting observations. As I was listening to CS, however, I realized that neither he nor TFM have read Ray Tannehill's book, Sex and History. As with most Westerners, their discussion about social and economic systems excludes Asia. Insofar as observations about hypergamy and gynocentrism are concerned, that's fine. Human nature is the same no matter where you go, and you don't need to include Asia about that. But when discussing social and economic systems, it's important to include Asia. In Tannehill's book, she mentions a period in Chinese history when there was a man shortage, kind of like what TFM has discussed in some of his videos. The economy was prosperous, and even many working-class men could afford to support 3 wives. MGTOW, of course, will hone in on the word support. But their conversation isn't about rehashing gynocentrism, but about the social and economic systems that benefit men the most. Until and unless transhumanism changes this, Gynocentrism and hypergamy are inescapable biological facts of mammalian life. So, historical outliers like this period in Chinese history warrant a place in their conversation, and I let both TFM and CS know about it. And then in another recent example, Stardusk posted a video in which he made it sound like the discussion about human nature, gynocentrism, and hypergamy began with MGTOW. Well, of course, Christian fundamentalists have been talking about human nature for a gazillion years. He also seemed to be saying that in the context of feminism, all references to post-structuralism, also known as cultural Marxism, are invalid and irrelevant. And finally, as with all of his videos that I've listened to, he ignores that there is a body of work that dwarfs his own on these topics and do not conform to his narrative about MRAs and anti-feminists. To make his assertions regarding post-structuralism, he has to ignore that many of the second-wave feminists read Frankfurt School books on post-structuralism, and that many of the books, articles, essays, and speeches that are foundational to the third and fourth waves of feminism were based on second-wave feminist interpretations of the Frankfurt School and employed post-structuralism or cultural Marxism to attack and destroy Western culture. Examples of this include Selma James, Brigitte Gaultier, Sylvia Federici, Heidi Hartman, Shulamith Firestone, Gail Rubin, Kate Millett, Juliet Mitchell, Zilla Eisenstein, Roisin McDonough, Rachel Harrison, Fenella McKenzie, Michelle Barrett, Mary McIntosh, Christine Delphi, Lucy Bland, Charlotte Brunsdon, Dorothy Hobson, Janice Winship, Beatrix Campbell, Valerie Charlton, Olivia Harris, Kate Young, and on and on. Just Google Marxist feminism. There are thousands of them. Indeed, the second wave focus on patriarchy as a means to oppress women came directly out of feminist efforts to transform Marxist theory to feminist theory. And where do you think the feminist fixation on class and identity comes from? Many MGTOW also ignore that we were discussing gynocentrism and hypergamy 20 years ago. MGTOW did not arise out of a vacuum. Many of us were influenced by Ayn Rand decades before somebody coined the term men going their own way. Back then we called it going gald. While I continued to operate until fairly recently under the delusion, and yes it is a delusion, that we could use politics to negotiate a compromise between feminists and MRAs, I had gone galt more than 20 years ago and have been living MGTOW ever since. You guys gave it a name. That's great, especially because it facilitates a more focused understanding and greater clarity. But it's not as new as many believe. And then there is the world outside YouTube. I've already described my little sliver of that world. During the past 40-odd years, Warren Farrell, Christina Hoff Sommers, Kathy Young, Fred Hayward, Richard Doyle, and thousands of others have reached hundreds of millions of people. YouTube's a great medium, but it's not the center of the universe. While I feel frustrated by how few of you have subscribed to Warren's channel, I feel confident that I can speak for him when I say that neither of us are here to compete with any of you. While it would be swell if I got a subscription-based to rival Stefan Molyneux, I've been there, done that, and today I have other priorities. My main purpose is to provide a historical archive for vloggers, especially MGTOW vloggers, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel or leave yourself open to attacks because of arguments or historical facts that are missing from the vlogger narrative. Excuse me. 6 or 7 years ago, I began writing articles in which I expressed a desire to get rich, so I could, among other things, support MRA, anti-feminist, and MGTOW projects. Back then I was thinking especially of man-woman myth and AVFM, but since then my scope has expanded to embrace most of you. One of those articles may still be posted on A Voice for Men. I stopped supporting AVFM when Elam's progressive supporters attacked me en masse. It was also getting impossible for me to defend Elam as he was advocating things I could not possibly support. Some of those progressives, by the way, are also involved with the honey badgers, and so while I continue to enjoy listening to Karen's standalone videos, I don't watch or listen to any of the honey badger content. To the YouTube audiences, I'm a relative newcomer, but I've been at this a lot longer than most of you, and I see myself as being like an uncle to the rest of you. I'm not here to compete with you, but to support you and to give you the benefit of my experience and knowledge, and to guide you around the traps I've fallen into over the years. If I ever do get rich, I fully intend to explore ways to support and grow all aspects of the manosphere, including MRAs, anti-feminists, MGTOW, and even some of the alt-right vloggers like Paul Ramsey, whose channel I really enjoy. Well, the Southern Poverty Lie Center, as Bern Chapin likes to call it, brands Ramsey a racist. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that, like a lot of people in Oklahoma, he's of American Indian descent. Regardless, I find him eminently reasonable, and I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of nationalists in Indian country. American Indians are, after all, the original American nationalists. So for now, I'm happy to just keep plugging along, putting out a few videos, feeling gratitude for every one of my subscribers, but not worrying about why my channel isn't growing as fast or as large as others. And if you see me posting a comment on your channel that sounds like criticism, it's not to tear you down, but to build you up. Unless, of course, you're a feminist hate monger, or one of those people complaining that black wives natter. Everybody natters, not just black wives. For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.